Hello and welcome to Into the Woods with Holly Worton. This podcast is all about our journey into the woods of ourselves, getting to know who we are, and where we're going in life so that we can create the life that we want to live. It's about deepening your connection with yourself, taking inspired action, and really trusting yourself and your intuition. It's also about mindset. Our beliefs are such an important part of this journey, and there are so many ways for us to change our mindset so that we can more easily live a life of expansive joy. This podcast is also about going literally into the woods and spending time in nature, and how that can help us on our own personal journey of self-knowledge. Thank you so much for joining us today. Now let's get into this week's episode. Hello, adventurers, and Happy New Year! Welcome to the Into the Woods podcast, episode 389. This is your host, Holly Worton, and I'm back with another solo episode. Today, I'm continuing with the theme of the last couple of episodes, which is about wrapping up the old year, giving yourself credit for what you did achieve, even though we had such a weird year in 2020. And today, we're going to talk about how to plan for your new year, all of the projects and goals and adventures and all the fun stuff that you want to do, even in a world when there's still a lot of uncertainty. So what are we going to learn today? I'm going to talk about how not to do your New Year planning, because despite the fact that I wrote a book on this, and I wrote this great workbook that is the system that I use every year to plan my own years, I fucked it up. So I'm going to talk to you about what I did wrong so that you can not do that, what to do instead, and how to plan an exciting year full of adventure and joy when it's really hard to plan, like stuff is still up in the air. I was just looking at my calendar for this coming week, and I'm supposed to have my third weekend of my wildlife trailing course this weekend, but we're still in Tier 4 as I record this, and West Sussex is also moved into Tier 4 over the holidays, so I don't think it's going to be able to go ahead unless things change. But who knows? Because they could change, because stuff keeps getting updated, for better or for worse, all the time. So, uncertainty. How to plan? Let's talk about it. So, let me start out with how not to do your New Year planning. So, I've had a weird holiday season. I'm out on the other side of it now, so that's why I can talk about this to you. I was kind of avoiding talking about it when I was in the middle of it, because that's really not the place to be sharing my crap. We got some news, not too long before the holidays, about a week or so, that one of our really long-term clients that we've done work for the last 7 years is probably not going to be working with us anymore. They've had a major management change about a year ago, and things have not gone as planned, and so they've halted a lot of their projects, including the projects that we work on. So the day this comes out live, we've got a call with them to see exactly what's happening, but it really felt like doom and gloom when I got the news. And Augustine was kind enough to give me the news after I returned from my workation, the last workation that I was able to do in December before we went into Tier 4. But it was like a bomb dropping, because I came back from my workation like just on this high. You know, I'd finished my business intuition book. I'd finished the workbook. I had finished putting together the year you will Spanish. What else had I done? I don't know. I wrapped up all of these publishing projects. I got such a productive workation. It was such a great time. And then boom, I got the news. And so I really felt like crap. Thankfully, we made a move and reached out to a bunch of former clients. We've got like 3 new potential clients lined up. We're really excited about the new things that we can work on with people, and that's great. But it like added to the uncertainty that I was already feeling from the year. It was like we had this kind of steady thing. We were doing great work for them. Everything was great. And then boom, more uncertainty. So it just really threw me for a loop. And the first week of the holidays, I just wasn't feeling that great. This week, I've done better, partly because I just stuck my head in a couple of books, because in part because I wanted to like escape from reality, and in part because I had one of my goals for the year, not really a goal, but one of my plans for the year was to read 40 books. Every year on Goodreads, I set myself a goal for how many books I want to read. And, it was down to the last week and I hadn't quite got there. And on New Year's Eve, I finished my 40th book. Yeah. So I kind of took my head out of reality and put it in a couple of novels. And that was great. So I'm feeling better now. And then yesterday I went on a 40K walk, which was fantastic. It was really, really good walk. So I'm feeling better. And now I'm in the place to do my New Year planning. But when I was in that kind of crappy place a few days ago, I think it was last week, I decided to do my New Year planning, knowing that it wasn't the right time to do it and knowing that I needed to wait. But I was just not feeling well emotionally and I wanted to feel better. And so I thought the planning would make me feel better, but it didn't. It was the total wrong thing to do. So I started out by following my system in my book, The Year You Want, and I reviewed the previous year. I had done that. I'd started doing it, and then I kind of did more of it and wrapped that up. So that was good. I did that right. But I just wasn't feeling good. I was in a really negative mindset. I was feeling really down. And do you know what I didn't do? So I have this whole process in the book where before you go into pulling your oracle cards for the year and before you go into planning your goals for the year, you do this dream. Your ideal day, your ideal week, your ideal month, your secret goals that are so big you don't feel comfortable telling people. Like you really kind of dial up that energy of what you would really like to have. Like what's your ideal lifestyle? I didn't even go there. I didn't even do those parts of my book. I skipped them and went straight to pulling my oracle cards for the month because I was feeling so crappy. I thought, I just want to know what's going to happen or what the possibilities are. And I went straight there. Why was that a mistake? That was a mistake because, again, I was feeling down, I was in a negative mindset, and I wasn't imagining the possibilities. I wasn't imagining all of the wonderful things that I wanted to experience. I was just stuck on how crappy I was feeling, and I wanted it to be better. So I pulled the oracle cards, and some of them were okay, and some of them were really crappy. And so I just thought, God, I just wanted to feel better. And now I'm worried about the new year. And part of me knew that I needed to do it over. But that's something that I'm a little bit wary about because years ago, there was this one year where I was pulling the cards and I did it properly. I was like in the right mindset, pulled my 12 cards for the year plus one for the overarching theme of the year. And there was one card that I didn't like. And I pulled that card and I was like, oh, I don't like that. So I put it back and I pulled a new card. The new card that I got was something really weird. It was like, make music. And I remember thinking, I'm really not a musical person. Why did I get this card? And I knew I got that card because it was so ridiculously off that I feel like kind of the energy or my system or something was trying to tell me like it was the original card, not this card, obviously. But I stuck with the new card, even though it didn't make sense. And then when that month rolled around, the theme actually was related to the first card that I didn't want to accept. So I'm wary about kind of doing a do-over with oracle cards. But I was also aware that I didn't pull them when I was in the right state of mind. And I was talking to my friend Joanna Hennon about this, who teaches a lot about how to use oracle cards. And I said, look, I was in a really bad mind place when I did this. And she was like, do it over. The cards that you pull are going to reflect the mindset that you're in or the state of mind that you're in when you pull the cards. So get in the right place and do it again. So that's my plan. I haven't done that yet, but that is the plan. So that's what I did wrong. So what should you do instead? First of all, make sure that you do your year-end review. Make sure that you've wrapped up the previous year. Make sure that you know how you feel about that year. Make sure that you know what you want to leave behind before you move into the new year. Make sure that you know what you want to take with you into the new year in terms of plans, projects, goals, things that you might not have achieved. And make sure that you're feeling great. Make sure that you're in a positive mindset. And make sure that you've dreamed big about all the possibilities, even if they don't feel possible because of lockdown, because of COVID, because you're in a crappy state of mind. Make sure you dream about what you do want, even if it doesn't feel possible. Dream big. Just give yourself permission to dream about what you really, really, really want. Because if you don't even give yourself the time and space to consider those possibilities, it's really not going to happen. But if you do give yourself the time and space to consider those possibilities, they might happen if you take action to achieve those goals and plans and projects. So really, the dreaming big and being in a positive mindset is such a huge part of the planning process. And I'm actually really glad that I fucked it up this year, because now I can talk to you about this and make sure that you do it right so you don't make the same mistakes that I made. Which is why I do a lot of the work that I do. Like my walking books, that's one of the reasons why I write them. So other people can avoid my mistakes, because I've made lots of them. So make sure you're in the right space and make sure you dream big. That is the biggest piece of advice. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to revisit my book again and redo all the New Year planning. It was so difficult. It was like I already had an idea of some of the goals that I wanted to write. I had already planned out the books I want to write this year. It was like my heart wasn't in it. It was so awful. So be in a good space and then plan. However, even though it's a new year, COVID hasn't gone away and we're still in tier 4 here where I live. And it's pretty much lockdown, and there's still so much uncertainty. So I think it's important to make a plan B, C, D, E, however many side plans that you want. And how do you do that? So you need to figure out why you want to achieve each goal or project or plan that you have. What do you want to get out of doing it? What result is it going to give you? How is it going to make you feel? Why do you want to have that experience? And then you need to figure out what else would give you that same result, feeling, or experience. So for example, I had to re-plan a lot of things this year. And I've told you the story 1,000 times, so I'm going to keep this brief. The Camino Portugués, I was planning to walk second half of March this year. The day that I was planning to fly out, I canceled it because COVID. What did I do instead? I went on that 2-week camping trip, which was absolutely glorious. It's something I want to revisit. I want to revisit some of those places that I went. And it really helped me get through that first lockdown. So when I was sitting at home trying to figure out what I wanted to do instead, I realized I wanted to go walking. I wanted to be outdoors. I wanted to spend lots of time in nature. I wanted to be alone. I wanted to have that kind of retreat feeling, outdoors retreat feeling. And I ended up doing that camping trip, and I ended up walking 150 miles that week, which is exactly what I would have walked if I'd done the Camino Portugués. So that was perfect. Later that year, I was planning to do the Camino Inglés in September, October-ish. And we were out of lockdown by then. It was kind of in between lockdowns, and people were starting to travel, but I really didn't want to travel. I still do not feel like getting on a plane at all. So I thought, well, what can I do? I could walk something local. So that's when I walked the Ridgeway for the second time. And I'd been planning to walk the Ridgeway this year in 2021, but I decided to bump that up and do that instead. And I just got online and I booked everything, and it was absolutely spectacular. It was the best thing I could have done. So that's a pretty easy kind of plan B. Don't want to travel internationally, so I will travel domestically. Next, I was going to write books about the 2 Caminos that I was supposed to walk last year. Instead of writing those 2 books, I replaced those with my Into the Woods short read series and my Ridgeway book, which will be coming out this year. So I just shifted my publishing projects to things that didn't involve international travel. Another thing, I wanted to get my black belt last year. Couldn't do that because we haven't been able to do contact or sparring since March. So instead, I ended up doing the modified winter course, which counts towards my black belt grading, but it was just the line work and the fitness parts of it. So that was good. It wasn't what I wanted. It wasn't what I expected, but it was a good alternative. And I made up new fitness goals. So I ran a 10K. I ran a half marathon. That was really exciting. I had another half marathon booked for Monday, the 28th of December, but obviously that got canceled because everything was in tier 4. So yeah, that was how I changed things around. So find out why you want each goal or project or plan, and then what is a good substitute in terms of what is going to give you the same result or similar feeling or similar experience. And I think this is really important when you think about what kinds of adventures you want to have in the new year, whether that's outdoor adventures, whether that's some other kind of adventures. Really come up with that plan B, C, D. So maybe you would like to have international adventures next year. Great. Put those on your list. Put those on your dream list or plans or goals for 2021 and add a plan B. What's a good alternative? just in case. Just in case you can't go there because travel's restricted or whatever, or you decide not to travel internationally. But have a plan B. And I think this is something that I'm going to do this year for just about all, if not all, of my plans and goals and projects, is I'm going to have my main plan and then I'm going to have my plan B for everything. Because I'm not always good with being flexible. I'm not always good with unexpected changes. I'm not great with uncertainty. I'm really tired of uncertainty. And I don't feel like being disappointed again. So what I plan to do is have a plan B, and this is what I would suggest that you maybe play around with, so that if you can't do your plan A, if you can't walk the Camino Portugués or the Camino Inglés or whatever thing, international travel or whatever thing it is that you want to do, right away, you've got a plan B. So maybe you have a plan B for each of your goals, plans, and projects, or maybe you just have like a menu of options that you can pick from if you can't do your plan A or your goal A or your project A. So what does that menu of plan B options look like? So for example, you might, instead of doing international travel, you might decide where you want to travel domestically. If domestic travel outside of your tier is not possible, where can you travel in your local area, within your tier or very close to home? Instead of doing organized travel with a group, you might do independent travel on your own. Instead of running a race or a marathon or an ultra, do the same distance, walk the same distance, or run the same distance, but on your own. I know it's a very different feel running a race or walking a race compared to doing it on your own, but it might give you some of the experience. It will certainly help you to complete that distance, not in the same environment, but it's still an achievement. I mean, yesterday I did a 40K walk and it was so lovely. God, I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. Would it have been different if it had been an event? Of course. But honestly, I really like walking on my own, so it was deeply satisfying. If you're feeling unwell, so like I got Lyme disease last year, that totally threw a wrench in the plans. So what did I do instead? My husband and I watched a ton of travel and adventure shows and documentaries. So make a playlist on YouTube of the travel shows you want to watch. Documentaries about races or amazing outdoor adventure things that other people do. I've got a blog post on this that I will link to in the show notes. And it's a blog post that I actually wrote when I was really getting into these outdoor adventure documentaries and getting into thinking about ultra running because I couldn't go out and do much because I could barely get up my stairs without being totally winded. So if you're feeling unwell, watch travel and adventure shows that give you that feeling of adventure, that feeling of excitement. It teaches you what may be possible for you. It teaches you places that you might want to go. Other things, like if you have creative projects like blog posts or books or something else that requires travel, make a list of blog posts or podcasts or books or things that can be written or done without travel. So this year, when I was planning my blog post for the year, I have this Evernote document on my computer where I just make a list of all the things that I might want to write about. And then I copy and paste topics of things that other people have said, I'd really like for you to write about this. And then I ended up categorizing them between blog posts that required travel and blog posts that didn't require travel. So if I can get out and go and hike at a place and take some pictures and write about it, great. If I can't travel to these places and do the research I need for that blog post, I can pick something else and I can write another blog post that doesn't require travel because it's either about a place that I've already been or it's information that I have in my head and just kind of needs downloading or something like that. So create that menu of plan B options. And even though we're still in this state of uncertainty, I really feel like having that menu of plan B options is going to make it a lot easier. When you can't do the main thing that you want to do, it'll make it easier to shift for something instead. So this weekend, if my course gets canceled, which it probably will, what am I going to do instead? Well, what was that course about? It was wildlife trailing. So I could just go into the woods and practice wildlife trailing, or I could just go out in the woods and go on a long walk, or I could do my next long training walk, or I could do a long run, or I could do just, something that requires me to be outdoors all day long, which is what I would have done if I had that course, which I, fingers crossed, It's not going to happen, but my fingers are crossed just in case it can. So create that menu and pick from that menu when you need to change your plans. I really think that it just gives not an element of certainty to this time of uncertainty, but it gives really good options for plan B. I think it's going to make it a lot easier. So that's one thing that I really, really learned last year, is to just have plan B, C, D, because things are always changing and there's really no indication that that's going to change anytime soon. So those are my tips on how to plan and replan your year and how not to plan your years. Please don't make the mistakes that I did, because it feels like crap. I'm really looking forward to pulling my Oracle cards again, really looking forward to doing my kind of dream big part of it. And yeah, I'm very excited about this year, because last year, despite the fact that it was really difficult sometimes, and I just sometimes felt like I was just barely hanging in there, especially during the first lockdown, I don't know, it was a great year overall. So hoping to be able to make this year even better. And I hope that you can too. So please drop me a line. Let me know what adventure plans you have for this year. And if you have a plan B, what's your plan B? And what you think about this plan B menu. I would love to hear from you. So please drop me a line. Let me know what you thought, what you're planning. My email's holly@hollyworton.com, or find me online and get in touch there. And thank you so much for listening. Remember to visit hollyworton.com/389 for the show notes on this episode. Thank you. Thanks so much for listening to Into the Woods with Holly Worton. You can find more information about today's episode, including links for topics that were discussed, at hollyworton.com. That's HOLLYWORTON.com. If you'd like to connect with other listeners and get support on your journey, I would love for you to join my private community on Patreon. That's patreon.com/Holly Worton. That's patreon.com/Holly Worton. Thank you so much for listening, and I look forward to seeing you next week.